But we begin tonight with the former governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich. And Governor, it is, I know, very sad or very happy for you to be home. Your family, I'm sure, is very happy to have you. Today, during that news conference, you called yourself a Trumpocrat. You are clearly very grateful for what the president has done for you over the past 36 hours.
Well, I absolutely am. My wife and I, my two daughters, we're all very grateful to President Trump. As I said earlier today, he didn't have to do this. I was a Democratic governor, and he's a Republican president, and what he did for me today doesn't help him at all politically. But President Trump is very different, and he's very different from many of his predecessors. This is a president who not only solves problems, but he actually is fighting to bring about the change that the American people have been hungering for years. We were promised that change. This is a president that's actually doing it. The fact that he gets so much pushback is proof positive he's keeping his promises, where perhaps others who promised change didn't do that.
I know over the past decades, sir, that you have kind of distanced yourself from the Democratic Party, but I want to put up on the screen, this is from the Illinois Republican congressional delegation saying about the president's actions and your commutation. Quoting here, Blagojevich is the face of public corruption in Illinois, and not once has he shown any remorse for his clear and documented record of egregious crimes that undermine the trust placed in him by voters. As our state continues to grapple with political corruption, we shouldn't let those who breach the public trust off the hook. Is there a point here, sir, that maybe you should have shown a little bit of remorse, some regret that you have not yet shown?
Well, I agree with the sentiment expressed in that statement by the Illinois Republicans, but they're pointing that statement at the wrong place. It shouldn't be pointed at me. It ought to be pointed at those uncontrolled, unaccountable, lawless prosecutors who did this to me. I broke no laws. I crossed no lines. They used a standard to convict me that if it was applied to those congressmen and to every U.S. senator, the same result would have happened to them would happen to me. I raised campaign contributions legally and lawfully. I never promised anything or threatened anyone in exchange for campaign contributions. The right to seek campaign contributions is not only necessary and routine in politics, it is also protected by the Constitution. It's considered by the Supreme Court a First Amendment right. And again, without a promise or a threat, there is no crime. There's no quid pro quo. There was none in my case. And I appreciate what those congressmen are saying, but they ought to point those statements in the direction of the prosecutors who did this to me, and many of whom are the same people who are doing this to President Trump.
I think they would point to that statement you just made as kind of proof positive of the fact that you know, you don't have any regrets about this. You spent 8 years in prison. You could have spent 14. And you look at some of the statements you made back in the day when you talked about this thing is bleeping golden, and the court convicting you of trying to shake down the CEO of a children's hospital. And by the way, the children's hospital would not comment on your commutation. But is there not even a modicum of regret of the way you handled this, of the things that you did, of the things that people said you did over and over again in that courtroom?
No, let me explain this. If the proper law was applied to my case, none of those things, none of the result that occurred in my two trials, they didn't convict me the first time around. They then changed the rules in the second trial and used fake law by moving lines to take honest conversations and tell a jury that these things were in violation of laws. They actually used the standard to convict me that the United States Supreme Court in the McCormick case said was not the law. So there was no shakedown of a children's hospital. I actually sent that hospital $8 million. I never threatened them or promised them with anything. No one ever said that I did. We sought campaign contributions from people who had raised money for me before. These things are not crimes. They're routine politics.
I want to play this from Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Here's what she said, and get your reaction on the other side. Watch.
This is a man who was a governor of our state. He committed crimes as found by a jury of his peers. He's got to accept responsibility for that. President Trump has obviously decided that the time served, 8 years, is enough, and it is what it is. But as I said, President Trump is probably the least credible person to make this decision.
And as we said in the intro, Rod, the amount of time, the 14 years, everybody in the court we were covering at the time said that's astronomical for these types of crimes, but yet everybody also agreed there should have been some time served for the way you conducted yourself in office?
If, in fact, I crossed the line or broke a law, then yes, of course, I should serve some time. But I didn't. They moved the lines, frankly, with a corrupt intent. The real problem in this particular case, and we see it, I'm living it, it's deja vu all over it again with regard to what they've done to President Trump. They're taking routine things and they're trying to criminalize them. We have a system now, and let me just borrow from what Supreme Court Justice Breyer said, where you have uncontrollable prosecutors who have no accountability, who are politicizing their power and using them against political figures, taking routine things and turning them into crimes that are not crimes. And that's what happened in my particular case, and that's why I continue to this day to continue to insist on my innocence, because I crossed no lines and broke no laws. And I'll tell you how I would have let the people of Illinois down if I gave in to that. If I allowed these guys who are shakedown artists to make me give in to a light sentence that they were floating in exchange for pleading guilty to something that I knew and they knew weren't crimes, then I would have let the people of Illinois down, because they didn't hire me to do that. They hired me as the governor to fight for the Constitution and the rule of law. And this is the larger fight that is before all of us as Americans. Some of these same people, again, have tried to do at the major league level to a Republican president what they were able successfully to do to a Democratic governor. And they are threatening to take away from all of us our rights to choose our own leaders through free and fair elections. Who hired these prosecutors who are covered with sovereign immunity under the law? Who told, where is it in the Constitution that says they're the ones who should decide who should or shouldn't be in office or remain in office?
I get your point, sir.
I'm not in a position where I want to admit to anything I did wrong, because I didn't. I would have done wrong if I gave in to this.
Yeah, you have said again and again that prison was, for all intents and purposes, horrible, a horrible experience, and now you want to work on prison reform, justice reform. What does that entail? I want to bring back in former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich to give him the final word on this. We lost his earpiece a short time ago. The final word to you, Rod. What's the future hold for you? I know you're back with your family. Is it reality television again? Is it books? Are you going to lay low?
Well, I need to find a job. At some point, I need to start working and providing for my family and working to contribute to the education of my children and to my wife, who's worked so hard and for so long all by herself. So clearly, I have to make a living. But I'd like to say this, Trace. I know what I'm saying is true, and if anybody would take the time to look into the facts and circumstances surrounding my case and the people who did this and what they've tried to do to President Trump, what they did to an American hero like Bernie Kerik and a whole bunch of other people, and including a criminal justice system that is inherently racist and disproportionately discriminates against people of color and African Americans. I've seen it. I saw it in 8 years in prison. If we don't do something about stopping this, if we don't rein in these uncontrolled prosecutors who have unlimited power, the life of our democracy will be choked, and we will lose our freedoms, the precious freedom of the American people to choose their own leaders through free and fair elections. That's what's at stake here. Our country's in trouble, and there's a small clique of some of the same people in the Justice Department who did it to me, and they've been trying to do it to President Trump.
Well, listen, you have your critics, sir, but we wish you the best of luck. And I can tell you who's not going to hire you is any shaving companies, because the cut on the chin today during the news conference was pretty vicious. I mean, I'll give you 10 seconds to respond, but you were tapping it the whole time. Apparently, a big bit of a change between prison razor blades and domestic razor blades, or?
Yeah, I've been bruised, I've been battered, and I was bloody today. I haven't shaved with a razor like that in nearly 8 years, nearly 3,000 days. So I got to start practicing again.
Rod Blagojevich, good of you to join us, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.